The Edmonton Oilers just played maybe their best game of the entire postseason to tie the Western Conference Finals at 2. A whole lot to discuss. Let's get to work.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday morning edition of Locked On Oilers. I am your host, Nick Zararis, and before we get to Edmonton's very big game number 4 win, gotta remind you, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That was fun. Was it not? Was it not fun to finally be on the good side of a butt kicking in these playoffs? I know in the first round against the Kings, the Oilers did their fair share of butt whooping, but this is different. In the conference finals, to play the way Edmonton did, in the circumstances they did, just really good feeling. Soak it in, bask in it. Today's show, very straightforward. We're going to talk about the psychological and the emotional stuff about this game, what it says about this team, why now you might really start leaning forward in your chair at the possibilities. Second segment, we are going to touch on some of the lineup choices they made tonight. Couple guys came in, couple guys came out. And then the third segment, we are going to talk about moving into the championship rounds of a conference final series and what that means. So, in the abstract, you didn't feel great based on how game number 3 went. You came out of the gate hot. You didn't put it away. You didn't take advantage. You had a power play there where you could have made it 3-0, and maybe 3 is too many for Dallas in game 3 to come back from. And tonight, the Oilers were able to turn the tables. You know, I chuckle there because brain-rotted millennial, the turntables, I think, of Michael Scott, but just a tremendous response all around. There was real heat on the Oilers side of the table coming into this game. Things were pretty tense this morning. If you didn't get if you weren't around, you weren't up, you didn't see it this morning. The questions about Darnell Nurse's availability, very pointed questions. Nurse himself was very curt, very short, did not give particularly anything in his answers. A lot of 2 and 3 word answers about his performance. And Connor McDavid and Stuart Skinner were made available together. And there was a question about Nurse, and McDavid jumped in there. And I never get a whole lot from those type of things. The media availabilities before games, after games, during practices. If you see a clip floating around on social media or the team account, you are not going to be able to glean a whole lot of that as an observer. These guys are very measured. They are very reserved. They don't want to put anyone on the spot. They don't want to be a bad teammate. They would rather, and when I say they, I'm talking about Connor specifically, they would rather people talk about them. This is a really common ploy in sports. You typically see coaches do this when their team is struggling, that they'll make a guarantee, they'll make some bold proclamation. So all the narratives, all the questions are about your coach. The players don't mind. They'll answer about the coach because the coach is there to kind of serve as the spokesman out to the world. You know, I'm trying to think of the comparison I would use, but being that Locked On Oilers Canadian show, I'm American and the political systems are a little bit different. I'm not up on my parliamentary procedure, but the job of the coach is to kind of serve as the sounding board and to manage the pressure points of the team. And make no mistake about it, coming into this game, the defense, Nurse and Cody Ceci in particular, major issues through the first couple games of this series. Stuart Skinner not exactly lighting the world on fire, though. I didn't think he was playing terribly earlier in the series, and I didn't think he was bad tonight. I mean, the goals they conceded, the Nurse goal, that I shouldn't call it the Nurse goal, but the goal that goes in off of Nurse's butt, you would like Skinner to be on the post there. When a goalie gets beat near post, that's a positioning issue. And I'm not a goaltending expert. I don't pretend to be. I am speaking from my experience of watching hockey, what I've read about the goaltending position from people who are experts, if you are getting beat there, that means you're leaning, and you're leaning far post because you're trying to play pass. And look, I know that puck gets redirected, but it was not coming in particularly hard. And Skinner, if he had a little bit better positioning, would have been able to make that save. And then the Lindell goal, excuse me, not the Lindell goal. The Lindell goal was the one that went off of Nurse's butt. The Wyatt Johnston goal, it's a good shot. Johnston's a good player. I mean, you would like Skinner to come up with that, but Wyatt Johnston's really good. That's going to happen at points in the playoffs where you're going to come up against a really good team like the Stars, and their really good players are going to make something happen. But I cannot speak enough to the Oilers' ability and their mental toughness, because it was looking bleak. You are down 2-1 in a series. The road team is up 2-0 in your building. In the first period, very early on in the game too, the first goal is less than a minute in. Real early, that game could have gotten away from you. And if Skinner doesn't make one more save, that game probably doesn't go the way it does. But the Oilers were able to weather the storm. And like I did in the Vancouver series, I'm going to give Kris Koblauch his flowers again for his decision making. And I find it weird that he never reacts to anything on the bench, whether it's good or bad. The Oilers score, he doesn't react. Dallas scores, he doesn't react. And I think as a coach, that has drawbacks to be so even keel that sometimes your guys probably need you to be a little more fired up. But the counterpoint to that is probably that behind closed doors, Knoblauch does get a little more animated, a little bit more fired up, and it's a little bit easier to rally the troops. But for the purposes of analyzing this one game, they took advantage of how it went. You know, Mason Marchment got hurt, missed a couple shifts there for Dallas. Brandon Tanev blocks a shot. Not Brandon Tanev, Chris Tanev, excuse me. I'm mixing up my Tanev brothers. Shame on me, shame on me. Chris Tanev goes out. Dallas has to start getting inventive. They juggled their lines a little bit later in the game, especially in their bottom six, trying to find ways to get something going offensively, because this was the most open-ended of the game so far, where there were a lot of rush opportunities going in both directions. And for the first time in these playoffs, that benefited the Oilers. I know I had said during the Stars preview with Joey, and speaking of, Joey's going to be on the show tomorrow, and we're going to talk about the series tied up at 2, try and give you a little bit more of a fuller picture, a little more detailed. But I said that when the series was going right for the Oilers against the Canucks, it was kind of slow. It was kind of low event. It was rooted in making Stuart Skinner not have to do a whole lot. And this game, there were a lot of odd man rushes in both directions, and the Oilers got one to go their way. You know, you get a shorthanded goal from Matthias Janmark, you almost got to find a way to win that game. And speaking of Janmark, we'll touch on him. We'll touch on Ryan McLeod. Philip Broberg, welcome to the playoffs. You, sir, have earned yourself a permanent spot in this lineup, and we're going to talk all about that coming up next on Locked On Oilers. We are in the thick of it, friends. Conference finals, NHL, both tied at 2, going to game 5. The Timberwolves staved off elimination against the Mavericks. We'll get at least one more game there. The Celtics are chilling, waiting to see who they're going to play in the NBA Finals. NASCAR is in full swing. The WNBA is in full swing. The MLB is in full swing. I sat through 18 innings of Mets baseball Tuesday afternoon, and I got my tickets on Game Time. When you're watching this Thursday, I got my tickets. Rangers, Panthers, Game 5. Only place I buy my tickets. Game Time. The best app that makes the ticket buying experience the simplest and most straightforward, with things like all-in pricing that shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. My personal favorite, the seat view, where you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee, where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage, where your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the industry. Take guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hello, I want to thank everybody who's making Locked On Oilers a part of their day, whether it's first thing in the morning, on the way to school, on the way to the gym, on the way to work, whatever you are doing while you're listening. Thank you for making it a part of your day. This is fun, is it not? You know, I hate to sound like a goober and hate to sound like a bit of a dork, but when your team is capable of performances like tonight, you got to start thinking anything's on the table now. Coming into the conference finals, I reiterated the focal point of take a deep breath, look around, and feel how special this is. Teams don't get here often. The Oilers were here 2 years ago. They got swept in 4 games. They've already fared better than any other team of the McDavid-Draisaitl era. That is not nothing. I know there's a lot of conjecture about the direction of the team, what Ken Holland's going to do. All of that does not matter. One game at a time. This is where you find out what people are really made of. When things are difficult, when situations become unstable, and it becomes very easy to point fingers at people, that's where you find out what people are made of. And tonight, the Oilers answered the bell. It would have been very easy for that game to get out of hand. We've seen Stuart Skinner really go through difficult patches at points, both in the regular season and the playoffs, this year and last. He was enough tonight. That's not to say you wouldn't like him to play better. He answered the bell tonight. Leon, my sweet, sweet king. That goal gave them a lot of breathing room and really gave them a chance. And speaking of goals, Ryan McLeod, way to stay ready. We talk about this concept a lot more in baseball, the idea of the situational player, you know, somebody who's maybe a defensive outfielder, a pinch runner, maybe a platoon lefty bat that you pinch hit based on who comes into the game out of the bullpen for the other team. In hockey, we don't see it all that often where you're going to see a lot of change on your like 10th, 11th forward in and out during the course of a playoff series, unless there's injuries. The Montreal team a couple years ago, they did this a lot where depending on the opponent, it would be Jake Evans or it would be Tomas Tatar. Depending on your opponent and where you are in the series, what you think your team needs, you might be able to tinker around. McLeod was solid tonight. The results were not incredible for his line, but he did enough. I thought Connor Brown is finding the puck. I don't think he's ready to break through. I don't anticipate a massive goal scoring heater coming, but he is finding the puck. He is skating it out of danger. He is getting it where it needs to go. That's what we need to see. And speaking of getting the puck out of danger, just a tremendous defensive performance tonight from Edmonton. And I know the chances weren't incredibly lopsided. You conceded 2 poor goals, but the Stars couldn't get a whole lot. They couldn't really get to the middle. And most importantly, and I tweeted about this the other day. I tweeted about this today when I saw that Desharnais was coming out for Broberg. The Oilers have gotten into trouble these playoffs when it's Desharnais, when it's Nurse, when it's CC, when it's Kulak. When those guys can't win a loose puck and they can't break out, that's when the other team starts to buzz. That's when they smell blood. That's when they start driving the net. That's where they get the ugly rebounds and they get the deflections. When you have big, physical, plotting defensemen like Nurse, like Desharnais, they have to win their initial puck battle, or because they're so slow, they're not going to be able to recover, reset, and start skating again fast enough to keep up with the play. And that's why you get guys that are so dramatically out of position. You know, if you watch the Rangers and Panthers game 4, you saw the play Trouba tried to make on that penalty kill at the start of the overtime period that the game ended really fast. He went for the big hit, taking himself out of the play. Because he was so big, he was not able to get back in not even back in the play. He was so far out of position that the screenshot of the goal about to go in, there was 1 Ranger in the frame and there were 3 Panthers. When you are big, when you are plotting, and that's PLODDING, not plotting, PLOTTING. Those are two different words. When you are big, lumbering, plotting guy, you are not going to be able to recover as quickly, reset your feet, and get back into a good position to make a play. That's why when you take a risk, like throwing a hit typically is, you have to hit them more often than not. Otherwise, you become a liability. Risk taking is an inherent part of hockey. So much of hockey is fluid and decision making based. It's not nearly as structured as any of the other sports. Baseball is weird because based on the situation, you swing, you don't swing. You might be trying to do a specific thing, but nobody's telling you, hey, hit a home run. Baseball and hockey are kind of similar in that regard, but the decision making is so fluid of the puck is here. Okay, do I pass? Do I shoot? Do I skate? It's up to you. Now, there are systems in place. There are rules within those systems you're supposed to follow to make a play happen, but they are not as hard and fast as football rules where it's, okay, it's cover two high. If the ball is in front of us, we have to come up and make the tackle. Or if it's cover three, we're going to drop that third safety back. We're going to cede some space in the middle of the field, but we're not going to get beat over the top. That's the key. In hockey, it's a little more decision-making based. That's why everybody sighs and rolls their eyes when a bad shooter, when a defenseman takes a slap shot from the point that gets blocked by someone's shins 50 feet away from the net, because that doesn't have a chance of converting into anything. If anything, that low-quality chance is only helping the other team get to offense quicker, which is not where the Oilers want to be. This game in particular was well-suited for them. They were able to get out to a lead. Dallas had a glimmer of desperation to them. Their decision-making was not as good as it probably usually is because they were chasing a lead, because they were down a forward at one point. They were down a defenseman for a good chunk of the game. When you get that smidge of desperation, they start having to pinch up. That means Dallas has room to go back the other way. That's the type of thing you want to see. And I don't know what Kris Koblauch's thinking right now as he sits in his office at the arena. Maybe maybe he's a shower and go home guy. Maybe as a coach, he's going to go home and shower. Doesn't matter. I think there's a real argument you can't take Broberg out. That was easily the best the Edmonton defense has played in quite a while. I think the transition value of playing him is immeasurable. To have somebody who's a solid skater and can pass the puck out of danger, that matters. Him and Cody Ceci had really good results tonight, really good underlying results. They controlled play when they were out there. They played about 15 minutes or so at 5-on-5. I was surprised it was Desharnais who came out and not Ceci solely because Desharnais kills penalties. I had figured if someone was coming out, it would be Ceci because he doesn't play special teams, and coaches are really reticent to play guys if they can't play special teams. And that's why you typically won't see a lot of lineup movement, especially when we're talking about those specialty skills types of guys. But it worked. Again, I gave Kris Koblauch credit against Vancouver for breaking up Nurse and Ceci when the time came in that series. They won the 2 games in a row. Same deal tonight. He gets credit for breaking up Nurse and Ceci. Nurse was still not great tonight. Do not get it twisted. Darnell Nurse did not have a good game. Him and Kulak were on the ice for the 2 Dallas goals against. 1 goal directly went in off of his butt, but Edmonton won, so everyone can exhale. I'm sure the national media guys who also, everyone's complaining about Nurse. Let's write about how bad his contract is. Frank Saravelli. Let's not do that now. The Oilers won, and the Oilers are about to enter the championship rounds of the conference finals. Stick around. We're going to talk about what that means. Thank you to everybody who has made it to the 3rd segment of Locked On Oilers today on Thursday. As I said in the opening segment, Joey of Locked On Stars will be back tomorrow to talk about the game going into game number 5 on Friday. Looking forward to it. Had a really nice chat with him. First time we did it previewing before the series. The Oilers are playing a little bit better than I expected. Their 5-on-5 play has been pretty lackluster. Dallas has controlled large stretches of play for most of the series until tonight. This was the first game it really felt like Edmonton was in firm control and could dictate the style and the tempo of the game. And that's where you want to be. This time of year, if you are playing less defense, you are increasing your chances of winning by the second. we are under no illusions. These Oilers are not the 2003 New Jersey Devils. Stuart Skinner is not Marty Brodeur. They don't have Scott Stevens. They don't have Rod Niedermeyer. They don't have Scott Niedermeyer. They don't have Ken Danico. They have two dependable guys who play together, and they have four very volatile options after that. But I thought of this comparison yesterday. After the Rangers lost to Florida, I was at my girlfriend's house, at my girlfriend's apartment, and I watched the overtime with her. And after she was done making fun of me because she's an Islanders fan, I took a long walked about half hour, 40 minutes to go home. And I was trying to think of a comparison of what the games 5, 6, and 7 feel like this time of year. And the only comparison I could come up with in any sport, and maybe there's another analogy I'm not thinking of, but the idea of the championship rounds in UFC. UFC's on my mind. I've been getting a lot of Dustin Poirier TikToks as of late. He's fighting Islam Makhachev. I forget how to pronounce his last name for one of the titles, and I don't even remember what weight class. I'm a Fugazi UFC fan. It's enjoyable. I don't mind throwing money for it when me and my friends want to get together and watch it, but I'm a very casual UFC MMA guy. But in UFC, most fights are 3 rounds. After those 3 rounds, either there's a decision, so a knockout or a submission, or it goes to the judges' scorecards, and based on how the judges score it for strikes and takedowns and points, all that, you get a winner. When there's a championship on the line, or it's the main event of a card, there are 5 total rounds. So the first 3 are normal because those are your normal. A normal fight goes 3 rounds. So not every fighter is trained to go 5 rounds. Not every fighter is used to that, especially if you're newer or you haven't been in the main event or fought for a title. That's a real part of your buildup in your training, is learning to go 4 or 5 rounds for your conditioning, for what you need in your preparation, both physically and mentally, to endure that. And at the start of the 4th round, the UFC play-by-play guy, it's usually Joe Anik, but they do have other guys, he will lean forward and he will say, "We're in the championship round now, ladies and gentlemen." Championship rounds, plural, because only guys fighting for titles get to this point. And that means there is an inherent virtuosity in having a level of attrition to make it this far and to go the distance. You know, you get a real sense of accomplishment if a fight goes 5 rounds and neither guy knocks someone out or makes the other guy submit. Now, in hockey and basketball, in sports where you play a best of 7, that comparison is not truly 1-to-1 because someone does eventually get knocked out. This would be like back in the day when boxing would go until someone got knocked out. But we're going to have a decision regardless in this Edmonton-Dallas series. The Rangers and Panthers are as well. And this is where you find out who you are. If you can find a way in these championship rounds to outlast the other guy and to outperform them, that shows a level of resolve, that shows a level of attrition that not all people and not all teams are capable of. And this Oilers team has already shown you the ability to get back up when they have been punched in the mouth and arguably on the verge of passing out. That would be like if you were in a rear naked choke and you were able to roll over and get your head a little bit out of the crux of the elbow so you could start breathing again. The Oilers have done an admirable job this season of answering the bell when situations have called for it. Coming back from the start they did when they hired Kris Koblauch, that is showing resolve. Being down 3-2 against Vancouver and winning Game 6 and Game 7, winning a Game 7 on the road, that is championship resolve. Now, this team, the Stars you're playing now, very well might be the best team in the entire league. The Oilers don't need to be the best team in the entire league. They just need to be better than the Stars 2 more times. Beat the Stars 2 out of 1, 2, 3. 2 out of 3 against a good team is doable. Even if they're more talented than you, even if they have more depth than you, the Oilers do not need the Stars to do at them anything crazy. The Oilers played really well tonight. that shows you the capability. And going into the series, the formula was simple. Stuart Skinner needs to play about average goaltending, which is about 900, and he's below that right now for this series, but he hasn't sank them. And they need to win on special teams, and they need to keep it close at 5-on-5 tonight. You got a shorthanded goal, so that counts on the special teams ledger. Matthias Janmark, thank you for your service. Appreciate you. You add those together. You had 2 of the 3 legs. That's good. 2 of the 3 legs will keep you in it most nights, and you get to that coin flip. What's going to happen over time? Who's going to win? The Oilers showed real championship resolve to drag this out. There are guys who get knocked out before the championship rounds. There are guys who are not ready for this moment, who get submitted or get knocked out before Joe Enick can say, welcome to the championship rounds, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in these championship rounds, will the Oilers be able to meet the moment once again and walk out Western Conference champions? They are absolutely capable of it. Tonight, the way tonight unfolded, to be down 2-1 in the series, to give up 2 kind of weak goals, to be down 2-0 at home, building is a library. Everybody realizes I just spent $500 a ticket and we're down 2-0 5 minutes into this game. I really don't want to be here right now. And they suddenly start going quiet. But then you get 1, and then you get 2, and then you get the shorty, and then you get Leon, and then you get the Ekholm empty netter to put us all home. Real resolve. Commendable performance on every single level tonight. The Oilers should feel really good about themselves, and they should feel that, and this is fan speaking, obviously, this is not how professional athletes think, but we can absolutely beat these guys. Tonight was the proof. Let's run this back, and let's make these guys uncomfortable the way they did to us. We have the capability to play this well. Let's keep doing it, and let's get to the Stanley Cup Final. Let's win in these championship rounds. That will just about do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Leave the show 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you are watching over on YouTube, hi, hello, that's my face. Yes, my eyes are very tired. My allergies are bothering me. That's why they're all watery. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the alarm bell, get a notification anytime a new episode goes live. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Broberg's staying in, or do you think we will see the return of Vincent Desharnais? Until tomorrow, let's go Oilers.